Welcome, everyone. I'm Jerry Rivera Wilson. I'm with the University of Albany in the School of Education, and this is edTrends. And today we are going to be talking with the 2024 New York State Teacher of the Year, and he's brought along a couple of friends. To do a welcome from the New York State Association of Teacher Educators and the New York State Association for Colleges for Teacher Education, I give you Christina Pfister and Jacob Beasley. Christina.
Hi, everybody. I'm delighted to be here and to bring greetings from the New York State Association of Teacher Educators. As you may know, we are the organization, the individual membership organization for teacher educators across the state. And we define teacher educator very broadly. So you might be someone in higher education, you might be a cooperating teacher. We're all teacher educators, and we're just so excited to be here tonight to meet with the Teacher of the Year. So thank you so much.
Jacob?
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Jacob Beasley II, president of NYACTE. NYACTE is the New York Association of Colleges for Teacher Education. We are an independent affiliate member of the National Office of the American Association for Colleges of Teacher Education, and we represent all teacher preparation programs in New York, both independent and public. And our primary focus is high quality educator preparation. So it really does the profession well to be able to spend time with those who have graduated from our programs and have become successful educators and namely been recognized as Teacher of the Year. So we're excited to be here and to support.
I'm now going to turn it over to the 2020 New York State Teacher of the Year, Rachel Murat, who will be serving as today's facilitator. Rachel? I know that Rachel
I knew I was going to do that, but I'm coughing so much I had to put it on mute. I'm sorry. So anyway, I want to just thank NYS and NYACTE for hosting an opportunity not only for our Nice Story family reunion, because it's always great when we get back together again, but also to provide some professional development for pre-service and in-service educators today with this conversation. So the New York State Teacher of the Year program is probably the best professional development that I have ever experienced, because it provides us the chance to connect with educators all over the world, have a friend in every one of our states, territories, and districts in the nation. And I would be willing to bet that we have a future Nice Story member in our audience today. So the application process for the New York State Teacher of the Year for 2025 is online, and it will be in the chat. And it's open until February 12th. And I would encourage you, even if you don't think you're doing great things, I'm telling you, you're doing great things. So go ahead and fill that application out, and we would love to have you be part of our interview process. All right, so it brings me great pleasure to introduce the 2024 New York State Teacher of the Year, Zach Arenz. After the beginning of his career as a music educator internationally, he returned to the state of New York and began working in the Rochester City School District, specifically at Flower City School number 54. He has taught students ranging from elementary through high school in vocal, general, and instrumental music settings. In addition to his 2023 recognition as a New York State Teacher of the Year finalist, he was previously named the inaugural 2021 Educator of the Year in Rochester City School District and was awarded the CIT New Teacher Award, recognizing outstanding performance as an intern-level teacher in 2015. His most recent professional projects are focused on highlighting and making improvements to his school's academic culture, specifically through the lens of restorative practice while committing to engaging instruction. As a member of NYSMA, which is the New York State School Music Association's Committee of Belonging, Equity, Diversity, and Representation, Zach is a relentless advocate for rigorous arts education programs and classrooms that support high levels of inclusivity and social emotional learning. Outside of his classroom, Zach is a restorative practices facilitator and academic culture leader in the school. He serves as a representative for a student exchange program and, in his spare time, volunteers as section leader in the Genesee Valley Wind Ensemble. Without further ado, here is your amazing 2024 New York State Teacher of the Year.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. Thank you so much to NYS. Thank you to NYACTE for hosting this today. I'm really excited to be here. and share with you some of my experiences as a teacher. All of our teaching journeys are unique, and I think it's really important right now that we really focus on why we're teaching. What are the things that keeps us in the classroom? What are the things that get us back to school every day, other than just a paycheck? So going along that, it's important to realize that every person's journey into teaching is a unique experience. It doesn't matter whether you're a pre-service teacher or a teacher who's decades and, can taste retirement. At some point, we all had to sit down, check a box on a college application, and decide, I want to be a teacher. So talking about what is it why are we choosing to make that choice is an important thing, and continuing to reflect on that reason throughout our career is an important aspect of being a successful teacher. As we go through that journey through our careers, we all experience hills and valleys. We experience celebrations, and we have days and times and periods where things just aren't feeling great. And during those hills and valleys, it's important to go through and reevaluate, what is your motivation that keeps you teaching every day? And the thing that got me teaching initially was just simply music. I'm a music teacher. I wanted to get out into the world and share my love with music with everybody. I wanted every generation that came after me to experience music in a way that I did, share the love and excitement of showing up at a festival, putting on a concert for your friends, your family. I wanted to share that love and that passion with all of my students. So I walked into my first job. Rachel said before, my first teaching job was in an international experience. I was living in Sweden, but that whole space, that whole culture was new for me. It was something that I didn't know. It was something that I didn't recognize. And being a music teacher in a classroom wasn't really a part of my plan. My passion was in instrumental music, teaching band. So, showing up in a new country, not being familiar with the language, being in that classroom, those things weren't comfortable. But I learned through that experience that being uncomfortable led to a lot of learning and self-discovery, and being in those situations, even though it's hard when it's uncomfortable, I try to set back and say, being uncomfortable is an opportunity to learn. I was quickly forced to question my why as a teacher. We were having some professional development, and I was talking about how I really wanted to focus on that experience of being a musician. And to me, at that moment, being a musician meant playing a lot of instruments, being able to read music. But I had to question what my end game was with those students because things were were difficult. I wanted to go back and figure out what was the end game. And I started to learn that the end game for me was more about the student than I had initially recognized, giving them those experiences. So after a year, I finished my first year in the city in Sweden, and I came over to the Rochester City School District. And also being in an urban school, and I put that word in quotes because at that time for me, urban schools, there were a lot of preconceived notions that I had. But I really quickly learned in that discomfort that things weren't really the way that they had been presented to me in a great, wonderful way. I was really not comfortable teaching elementary school general music. I wanted to be that band teacher, but that's the job, that's the opportunity that had been presented to me. I was struggling walking into this urban school setting with a history of being in a suburban school setting, not really feeling like I fit in. I spent a lot of time having to question, just who I was, and was the things that I did on a day-to-day basis, what was I working with the school that I was a part of? And that was another thing that was hard. A lot of those days early teaching were really hard. Things like classroom management, things like figuring out the lesson plans, the long-range curriculum. I was planning for 7 different grade levels at a time. So to get through this, I was forced to reckon with what was it that was making my teaching meaningful. I needed to change my whole mindset from being there to share my love of music to something new. And my mentor during those first few years, she said a quote to me that really continues to sit with me today. This is my 10th, 9th year here in the city school district. And she told me to think of this quote from a student's perspective, that I can't learn until I know that you know who I am first. It took a really long time for me to sit with that and start to understand what that quote meant. It meant a lot. And what I started to realize was how important it was to lay the lives and the identities of my students at the forefront of my teaching. It was a difficult mindset shift, but now that I've invested myself in that, that's where I'm starting to see more success, and I'm starting to find a lot more rigor, not only in my instruction, but also in the planning and the time that I spend getting my classroom to be the space that it is. So the meaning of being successful as a teacher for me sometimes goes beyond the curriculum. Yes, you want your kids to know the standards that you're teaching, but if the basic needs of my students aren't being met on a day-to-day basis, I felt it was on me to go out and find out what could I do to help. I'm looking at things, basic needs like food, clothing, and sometimes just the basic interaction of one person to another. I'm not always able to provide all of those basic necessities, but I know that a positive interaction is something that is within my control each day a student walks through my door, and that's something that I hold very, very preciously, and it's something that I never take for granted. I've learned that relationships and community are the foundation to my classroom. Teachers are relationship builders, they're connections, not only within the school, but also across the community. There's not a person who lives in your community who hasn't been to a school. And that's huge to know that every person has the ability to live in a successful classroom and know that you have part of that responsibility is a powerful thing. But I also really want to make sure that everybody understands that good relationships are not the end all to good classroom management. It is quite frustrating to hear the trope of, well, so-and-so wouldn't have done this if you had only built a relationship. Building relationships are a step in the right direction, but having classroom management techniques that are tried and true for you and things that you can learn from others, those are equally important to building the relationship, and they're a part of that. Being sure that your community is a place where students feel cared for, where they know that you are a compassionate ear, that they know that you are invested in them. And that's where I come back to this quote of, I can't learn until I know that you know who I am first. Once I get to know your story as a student, your story as a person, because the physical backpack that the kids wear into school is not the only thing that tells their story. There's also that emotional backpack, the backpack that comes with their history, their 7, their 10, their 18 years of history that matters to who they are as a person, and it matters to what they're bringing to the table each day when they walk into your classroom. And if I want to know their stories, I also think it's important to share my stories. When that relationship becomes a two-way street, I think that that's when you're going to start really seeing a ton of success, because your students are also going to become invested in you. So as I've been teaching, I've had a chance to reflect on thousands of students, multitudes of colleagues and peers, and I've had the opportunity to learn countless stories Things that have changed my entire perspective. Just walking down the street, I have a whole different feeling of what it is that our community is bringing. These stories define what is most important to me in my classroom. So shifting from why I wanted to teach just for the sake of being a music teacher, the reason that I show up now on a day-to-day basis is to inspire my students, to lift them up and to make change. When I look at these pictures, every single one of those kids has an incredible story that they're bringing to the table. Yeah, I can see the faces of a student who was in kindergarten and grew up to be a kid in 6th grade now, who went from a multitude of behavioral challenges and insecurities to a student now who's blossoming and is looking forward to every opportunity that they have in the arts. I'm seeing kids who threw chairs in their classroom, who yelled and didn't feel safe everywhere, but the moment they crossed the threshold into my classroom, they were sneaking, their phone into my room so that they could watch a video, so that they could learn a little melody on their piano. I see a community who's fighting for change in the streets that they live in, because when we brought song to our street, they were taking it back. They were being able to share their story, their passion with everybody. And I think that to take those moments to know that you are inspiring the future is huge. But in doing all that and finding that inspiration, you do have to get to know your community, and there has to be a little bit of vulnerability that comes from you. You have to be willing to learn, and it's that two-way street of give a little, get a little. Getting to know your people gives you a reason to lift. It gives you a reason to lift them up, and it gives them a reason to lift you up. Getting involved in the community is an incredibly powerful way to make meaningful impact, because when you know your community, that's when you're getting to know the culture. And that's when you can push forward into culturally relevant teaching that makes sense for the people that you are given the task of educating. Being sensitive to their needs, to their histories, just makes your classroom a more inviting space. And finding your army as a teacher is something that I have also found to be really impactful. This year, I am fortunate to have a second music teacher in my building, and I've had her with me for a couple of years. But at times, being a teacher can feel a little bit solitary when you're the only person. And it shouldn't be that way. Teaching is a community sport. There are so many people invested in a child who are all playing different roles, but it can feel like you're doing those roles alone. So I ask that, how can you use your army to lighten your load a little bit? You shouldn't be forced to carry the entire educational experience on your shoulders. When a student is in your classroom, they're there for those few subjects, but they're also going to their arts classrooms. They're also going to their PE classrooms. They're also going to lunch. They're also passing people in the hallway. They have their social worker, their counselor. How are those people working together to make the educational experience as impactful as it possibly can is a challenge that I ask you to go out and look for. I challenge you to build your resilience. Just knowing why you teach isn't always enough to keep you going. So I want you to reflect on, what are the things that spark you? What are the things that really excite you? And they might not be the things that are necessarily on the floor in your classroom. So what are the ways that you use those passions and those sparks in your classroom to generate more engagement? What are the ways that you're using your story to make the kids excited? You're allowed to have that. But on the flip side too, question and wonder, what are the barriers that prevent you from flourishing? Are there things that are there that are just not getting you enough speed and enough oomph to move you in the right direction in a way that you know that you're continuing to make that impact? It's important that we know our limits as teachers and that you know that you're keeping time for yourself and for those that you love every day. Um, Prioritize things that matter. For me, finding time to just be with my family and my friends outside of school is really important. And knowing that it's okay to take off my teacher hat and be just Zach for a little bit is really important. I love going out and playing with my wind ensemble. I love going out with my friends and playing trivia a couple times during the week. Those are the things that really make me look forward to, to, to my end, to the end of the day sometimes. I do also look forward to a professional development. I look forward to a conference, but it's also okay to love things outside of teaching. It's okay to say no when it's appropriate. You know, we can't always say no to everything, as nice as that would be sometimes, but so drawing your line and knowing when and where it's okay to cross is an important part. Seeking out relationships and resources that keep you reflecting each and every day is one other piece that I would love to share with you. One of my favorite professional developments that I took part in and then turned around and did it again for the staff in my school was reading Elena Aguilar's book Onward, and it's all about cultivating emotional resilience in educators. That book taught me a lot about mindfulness. Mindfulness is a practice just in my day-to-day life, taking the time each and every day just to notice little things, putting important practices in place so that I know that I'm continuing to be strong and I'm not carrying too much of a load in one bucket and not enough in another. Learning the balancing act of being a successful teacher, but also a successful human being for all the people who are involved in my life is really important. So with that today, I really just want to encourage you to get out there and really wonder what it is that you're doing each and every day and find your spark. I want you to find the spark that keeps you going each and every morning. What helps you get into the car? What makes you smile when those kids walk up to school each morning? And with that, I want to thank everybody for being here. And of course, to NYS and NYACT again for hosting today. Thank you.
Zach, thank you very much. And I just want to say to our audience members that I have been in your classroom several times, and Zach is that spark for so many of his students. And the joy that is on their face instantly when they open your door is just amazing. And I just thank you for everything that you do for your students.
Thank you so much, Rachel.
Yep. And I'd like to introduce you to three more amazing people. And I've had an opportunity to be in two of the three classrooms. And again, you will not find finer educators than the four people who are looking at on your screen. So I'd like to welcome into the conversation the 2023 New York State Teacher of the Year, Billy Green, the 2022 New York State Teacher of the Year, Carly Santangelo, and the 2021 New York State Teacher of the Year, Jen Wolf. So I think we are going to go to our questions next. And so the first question says, how do you keep your stride and drive within the profession? And I can tell you from my experience that re-engaging myself as a learner really made a huge difference in not only my mental health, but in my outlook in my classroom. And it really did reinvigorate myself as an educator. Billy, is that something that you could chime in on?
Definitely, definitely. First and foremost, I thank God, right, for waking me up every day. I thank all of us for doing this job and calling us to do this, because I think that most of us know that this is a calling, right? You don't stay this long in the profession without knowing that something got you up to get there. But I feel that what drives me mostly and my passion for daily, that I know that, like Zach said, working in an urban environment, sometimes their eyes spark when they see their teacher. And when we do our jobs right, and when we do our jobs full of love, passion, excitement, and everything that we know we can bring to the table, I see daily 150 sets of eyes, right, that look at me with love and admiration. And if that's not enough motivation, I don't know what is, right? I think everyone finds that our center becomes our students. I think that we can all say we love working with us, the adults, but there's always that time when we go, I think I need an Advil because of an adult. But I have never felt that I needed anything else but the love of my children. And seeing them come back, especially at the high school setting where I see them get into college, I see their lives change and unfold. Some of them had never had dreams of going to Ivy Leagues or small Ivies and getting full scholarships. I just know it's life changing, and it's so impactful. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. Carly, can you give us some insight on this one, please?
Sure, Billy, I agree wholeheartedly. The students are, the reason I get here, and the reason I stay late. But I have found that continuing to be engaged in professional learning for my content area. I think that we are all teaching in different subject areas here, but I love the subject that I teach. I teach agriculture, and as I stay involved in the professional learning in my content area as well, I get to constantly think of new ideas that I need to teach my students this. I need to update what I'm teaching in this lesson or in this unit. And so the love of my content really helps keep me on my toes and wanting to return to the classroom to bring that to my students, to share that love of agriculture and what we're doing with my students. And with what Rachel said too, collaboration is a huge part of maintaining on those hard days. I am surrounded, as we all are, by incredible teachers. Mm-hmm. Not in my content area. I'm the only agriculture teacher at the school, but there is not a single person in this building that I can't learn something from. And so sometimes it's taking 10 minutes to pop into a classroom, to see a lesson, to have a conversation with a colleague. And it's really amazing when you open your mind to how you can apply things from across all of the content areas to your teaching, and what a difference that makes, even small changes every day.
Thank you, Billy and Carly. Appreciate that. Before we go to question number 2, I just want to give a shout out to 2015 New York State Teacher of the Year, Charlie Gillio, who has joined our Zoom today. So I know you're driving, Charlie, so I don't want you to talk on there, but I just want to say hi, and we're so excited that you're here. So the second question, what's needed today to have a successful career in the profession of teaching? Jen, can I throw that to you?
Yeah, that's a good one. I was actually thinking about this all day today as I'm proctoring midterm exams. And I was thinking that the things that have served me well have been an ability to be flexible. You need to have stamina and a growth mindset. Mm-hmm. And I think those are the same kinds of things that I heard Zach talk about and Carly talk about and Billy talk about, that it is so important. And I would argue probably the most important thing to do, in our work is to always stay fresh on the material, but more importantly, to make sure that you can stay flexible. You are thrown all kinds of things during a day. You answer. I think someone did I think there was data polled on how many questions a teacher answers in a day, and it was somewhere around 1,000 or 1,100 questions a day. And it is really important that you remember that you are a learner too. I think we forget that we walk in there and think we're supposed to know everything. I tell the kids all the time, if I knew the answer to every question, I would be in the White House with a direct line to, the president, and he'd be calling me every time he had a question. That is not the case, and together we do the learning. So that's really important, is to make sure that you're flexible, that you develop stamina. So please take care of yourself with some kind of exercise. I cannot say that enough. It is important. It should be scheduled into your day. And a growth mindset. A soft front and a strong back are the keys to this work. A soft heart.
Thank you, Jen. I'm sensing a lot of trends here. Zach, I'm going to throw it right back to you. Could you answer that question as well, please? Thank you.
Yeah, I love what Jen was just talking about with the growth mindset. One of the things that I was thinking about was, and also calling a little bit back further to Carly, being able to learn from others and know that, yes, we are masters within our content area, but teaching is a practice. So being willing to get out there and be vulnerable and say, wow, I just saw the fifth grade teacher in my building try this really similar line of questioning in a way that also matches in my content area is huge. To know that we can lean on each other's back is really important to success. But when I initially looked at this question, I was taking it in a little bit of a different way. And when I'm looking at the future of being successful as a teacher, it definitely extends far beyond just your content area. Knowing how to go out and educate the whole child is really important right now. Not just looking at them for like that time block that you have, but knowing that everything you're teaching isn't just about the book work you're doing that day, but that you are also caring for them and also getting ready for them to be adults in the 21st century. Is a huge responsibility, and being able to straddle the line between content master, but also getting to know kids and what's going to make them successful later. That to me is really important to recognize.
Thank you, Zach. And that's a perfect segue into the third question, which is how is building relationships a catalyst for good teaching? And I think we all know that, relationships with kids is really the starting and foundational block, because a lot of things don't happen if you have that relationship, but a lot of things do happen if you have that relationship. Kids will do things for you in the classroom that maybe they won't do for someone that they haven't formed a relationship with as well. And also it's a great conversation starter too. If, a kid is struggling with something, you can bring in the instrument that they play or the sport that they play or their job or their life plans that they have, and just getting to know them as a person first, I think is a great way for you to start conversations that sometimes might be difficult in the classroom. Billy, could you help us out with this one?
Sure. I like relationships are definitely important. And it's important that we are expansive in our definition of what relationships are. I think a lot of times we focus only inside the school, right? And I think Zach said it best in the beginning when he spoke of building community relationships, right? Understanding our students, the whole child. We have an incredible power as teachers to foresee things, right? To look within a child and say, oh, you're doodling on my black and white test. I see color in you. I'm going to let you now apply to Cooper Union. Maybe you want to be an architect, right? But still go into STEM, right? So when we see those things within our students, I think that building relationships with them comes with the fact of when they see themselves, right? And they see themselves when you go above and beyond, which most of us do, and find that community relationship that can help them beyond your classroom. A lot of times what makes me successful in classroom management is not that the kids care about chemistry or if I'm like animated or so forth. It's truly the fact that I get them opportunities. And I understand that the teacher is the greatest resource. And as I always say, a lot of people think I'm ghetto, but ghetto is an acronym to me, and it means getting higher education to transform others. And I think we're all a little ghetto, and I think that's what makes us great resources as teachers, that we bring that to the table. And if we start understanding we went to college, we know a lot of adults, we have brothers, sisters that are working in industry. And if we use those connections, our students will flourish beyond belief. So building relationships with community will definitely, to me, I feel is the premise of building relationships with my students and their families.
That's a great point, Billy, about not only being able to build the relationships, but leveraging the network that you have to model for our students that engaging in, relationship building with others. And you never know when a connection you make is going to provide an opportunity for your future self. So you have to kind of think about the fact that you're auditioning for a future role every single day. Zach, would you like to weigh in on this one?
I think going back into that community aspect, uh, one of my favorite things that I'm just recently, I overheard a kid talking that they were having their football game that week, back in September. And I mentioned, I was like, oh, can you tell me when that was again? And they just kind of said it in passing. But then I showed up to the game, and like the spark in their eyes was huge. And then suddenly by October, that child who I've known for 4 or 5 years already is suddenly working like they were a whole new kid because there was that opportunity for me to walk into their community and almost be a guest for them rather than maybe them feeling like they were a guest in my classroom. I think that that's huge. But also, Rachel, earlier you were talking about what people will do for you when there's a relationship. And that, of course, that goes two ways. If I have a community built in my classroom where the kids know I'm invested in them, and also I know that they're invested in me, there's no stopping us. There's no stopping how far we're willing to go for each other to enable success.
Absolutely. And some of those out of school opportunities gets me outside of my comfort zone because little unpopular opinion, I don't like to people outside of school on the weekends, but like sometimes going to, a play at a public community organization or going to see, an AAU basketball game or something that's not associated with school, the kids really do notice, that thing that you do for them. And it does pay dividends later on for sure. Sometimes you get to talk to their parents while they're sitting in the stands, and sometimes that's an added benefit. You never know. All right. So our next question is, how do you build a positive culture in your daily lives? Carly?
Sure. I think the first step for having a positive culture is really believing in myself that what I'm doing is important. Sometimes I have to remind myself on hard days. I'm doing hard things because I know that the hard things I'm doing are worth it. So sometimes it's just reestablishing that, making sure that I am I'm setting goals to show to show myself the progress, or to show my students, or to show my family the progress toward those goals. And then when we're taught to, or when I teach folks to give feedback to students, I coach a lot of public speaking, and when we give students feedback, we start with a positive, and then we give some advice, constructive feedback, and we end with a positive. I try to do that same thing in my reflection at the end of the day. I like to start with something positive, and I've even carved out, I think it's really hard, I even carve out space in my planner at the end of the school day when I'm reflecting on lessons and how things went well. I make myself write down something had to go well. Something had to go, maybe not the way I wanted it to, but something went well. It may be very small, but I always start off with finding something that went okay. Maybe it was just okay. And then reflect on the things that I would change for next time, and try to end those moments focusing more on even one or two little things, because it's very easy to get caught up in the things that are difficult. And last with that, just remembering that I can advocate for the changes that my students need, that I need to create the environment that is beneficial for all of us.
Thank you, Carly. Jen, would you weigh in?
Listen, I really like Carly's answer, so I don't really have a lot to say. I really like the last part you said, Carly, was about teacher agency. I mean, we talk a lot about student agency and how important it is that students have a voice and that students have ownership. I'd written down a couple of things about my own classroom where I try to make sure that the students have ownership of my classroom. It's very student-led place. They make their own norms based on their own values, not my values. But it is really important that teachers remember that it's super important that we speak up. Our world is not just the walls within our classroom, right? It's the district, it's the building, it's our state, it's our nation. And so, and it's our profession. And I think that we have to remember to take care of that. And when we have more ownership of our own profession, I think there's more joy, right? I'm going to say, I said a bunch of things, but I wanted to say the last thing was to create positive environment in my room and in my own life. I focus a lot on SEL. We do a lot of reflecting. We do some mindfulness workshops. Oceanside is very lucky that we have a wellness center that's run by a school psychiatrist, and the kids are free to go in there at any time to do during the day on their free period and to work with her on areas of their life where they are facing challenges. And the teachers can bring students in there and they can talk about test anxiety and stress. We just have, we're in the midst of the midterm week, and the kids are, I brought them last week in there to talk to the, psychiatrist about how we deal with test anxiety. So I think it's really important to not lose sight of how important SEL is to their learning and to the positive, aspects of your room.
Thank you, Jen. So one of the things that I like to do is I joke, because I teach mostly juniors and seniors, although I have a couple of sophomores. I like to joke about the fact that I like to get them to roll their eyes at me, 3 minutes into the day, because I'm out in the hallway dancing and we do a fist bump and I have walk-in music, and they don't like the way that I dance, but giving them the opportunity to watch me, do my Elaine Boozler and, jam down to some 80s school appropriate music, which is a little bit harder to find than I think you would think it was, gets a smile on their face, and it really does set the tone for class. But it also gives me a peek into what's going on to the day, and I can tell from their body language when them walking down the hallway if there's something that maybe I need to talk to them about or address or give them space to deal with, that maybe if I was not out in the hallway seeing that, I wouldn't know, and that's going to impact their learning. So I love out there dancing. They have grown to love it, I think, but it's something that I really enjoy doing in the morning. And apparently I'm more of a morning person than teenagers are, but it's okay. All right, so the last question, we're going to do a speed round, and we're going to go in reverse order. So that means that Zach is on tap first. Would you please give some advice, what advice would you give a fellow teacher?
My advice would be that it's okay to know that teaching is hard, but this is also a job where we literally have the ability every single day to make really meaningful impact on the future. So it's really important that you take advantage of every opportunity you have to be that positive change maker in the community. Know that with the littlest kids, we have the opportunity to quite literally change the future, because that future is going to last for a really long time. So don't lose sight of that.
Thank you, Zach. Billy.
Yes, I would tell our teachers, and all of us, right, that experience each day as a day to love, learn, and grow in the profession. I think every single day we grow in this profession. And I think we have to dispel that notion that our job is to be Jesus and save every child. Our job is to damn be Moses and lead every child to the mountaintop as we see their visions and their dreams and teach them how to etch everything into their realities. So thank you. Just breathe in the profession.
Thank you, Billy. Carly.
My advice is that even when things are not going well and teachers are so critical of themselves, the lessons that you think were a total failure, or even the long stretches of time that feel like you just weren't being effective, to know that you are making a difference, and you will down the road, you'll reflect on all years, lessons, and times, and you'll find out that you really made a difference in a student's life during a time when you felt like you weren't doing anything right. And so just keep persevering and know that regardless of how you think it's going, that you're making a big difference.
Thank you, Carly. Jen?
I would say to say you're sorry when you make a mistake, to own your mistakes. Kids need to see adults, take responsibility. I'd say that when a kid asks you a question and you don't know the answer, you say, "I don't know the answer to that. Let's learn that together." And I would say, um, oh, own up to your mistakes. That's different from I'm sorry. If you hurt someone's feelings, right? That's I'm sorry. If you've made a mistake, you should definitely say that you made a mistake. Teenagers are very good at detecting the bullshit. And so you want to make sure that you're always being you. They'll love you for it, and they'll always forgive you for being too hard, but they will never forgive you for being too easy.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jen. So my piece of advice is that you are enough. You are making a difference, even on the days that you feel like we're a total disaster and you're questioning your life choices. You actually did reach a student that day. You might not know it right away. We all have students where they hear us every single day, but they don't actually listen until later on in life, and it hits them and they're like, oh, that's what she meant. So just know that you are enough. You are doing amazing things, and that you should fill out the 2025 Teacher of the Year application, because we would love to have you join this amazing group that we have. So Jerry, I think I'm going to throw it back to you for questions.
So I'm going to ask if there's anyone here who would like to ask the panelists or the moderator or the current 2024 New York State Teacher of the Year a question. Feel free to unmute yourself and raise the question.
While we're waiting for that, I would just like, Charlie, I have a question. Would you like to add some advice as 2015 Teacher of the Year? You're muted, Charlie.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Could you repeat that question, please?
Sure, absolutely. Could you give, what advice would you give a fellow teacher?
Well, treat each day as just that day. Our good friend Dana McDonough made that wonderful bit on what students carry in their backpack when they come into class every day. What do teachers carry in their backpack when they come into class every day? Tier 6. How many years do I have to go till I retire? I don't think I can take this anymore. I don't like my principal. Well, put them in your backpack, deal with them in another arena, and then take a look at yourself. I always say to especially young teachers who are getting discouraged, stay out of the teacher's room. Okay, you don't want to listen to that stuff. Find teachers in the school that are like-minded with you, positive, optimistic. As Zach says, that zeal, that inspiration, that fire that you have. You don't want that flame to go out. And then take a look at yourself. When at the end of the year, if you don't have any scars, okay, you haven't been doing a job, because we suffer. We're the suffering servants for our students. We suffer for them, and we take on their burdens. And you guys are wonderful examples for me. And Zach, I absolutely loved your talk today. I feel very inspired by it. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Okay.
Well, I want to take this time, since there are no questions, to thank Zach and everyone here today, Carly, Rachel, Jennifer, Billy, for spending time with us and sharing with us some important information that we can take back as we work with teachers, and just it's uplifting, quite frankly, when things can. And I always say every day is a new day, right? I mean, tomorrow might bring better things if today was, a bit of a challenge and had its hurdles. But that's the nature of the profession, right? And to have that positive mindset and to overcome those challenges so that you can be at your best and do your best. So I want to thank you all again, our New York State Teachers of the Year, for being with us here today at edTrends. We congratulate Zachary on his year of honor. And I want to also thank my colleagues and friends who joined today to serve on the panel and to moderate. And again, as Rachel has mentioned numerous times today, we encourage you to submit an application to be considered for the 2025 Teacher of the Year. And with that, I wish everyone health and happiness, and we look forward to seeing you again on edTrends. Take care, everyone, and good night.